My name is Denis. I come from a marketing and sales background. I have been working in a marketing agency for about 6 years, actually multiple marketing agencies. Started off with something like sales, then went through advertising, SEO, conversion rate optimization, analytics, and so on. So yeah, let's go a bit back. Yeah, I guess, okay, still working on that, I guess. That actually started my whole kind of like experience with the whole marketing and entrepreneurship. And at some point when I was kind of like fed up with the agency life, I decided to take a short break and go travel through Latin America. And that short break turned out to be about a year and a half. Besides this llama, I actually met a very cool Brazilian guy in a very small Brazilian village, and he was like a crypto investor, and that's actually how my crypto journey began. He kind of showed me the intricacies of working in crypto, and I was investing in crypto for a couple of years before that, but that point was kind of very important for me to deep down into the rabbit hole. So after kind of meeting the guy, I started participating in a DAO by posting on a governance forum, and that's like a usual DAO journey that you could have. After that, after participating in that governance forum, I got employed by Idle DAO as a product marketing manager. So something like a head of marketing. Idle DAO is a yield aggregator. It also does risk trenching. It's mostly a B2B protocol focused on, something like treasury managers and hedge fund managers who want to get better yields for their funds. These are some of the conferences that I attended, starting in October last year in Lisbon, Liscon. I was on a panel there talking about DAOs. The second image is from Spaghetti ETH in Milan. That was like 2 weeks ago. And the last image is from Amsterdam, Dev Connect in Amsterdam. All of those was kind of like I was attending with the members of Idle DAO, and I think that's like very important to kind of like connect with the team and also kind of network, and we'll talk about it like very soon. This is my second lover. This is Magic Omens, my other business. That's kind of like the entrepreneurial side of my life. I founded with a friend like a store that sells board games and trading card games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, kind of using the brand name as the whole like umbrella term for producing and marketing like additional services and products. All right, so to get into it, we will stay away from the definitions, but this will be the only one. In a second. So, DAOs, give me a second, is this the...
Yeah, is it working?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, yeah, sure. So, yeah, next one. Just a second. All right. So a DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations, internet communities with shared capitalization table and a bank account. So this capitalization table is basically something that tells you how much somebody owns like parts of the equity. Members work together to create, distribute, and capture value relative to the shared mission of a DAO. Being a DAO, it implies ownership. Usually that comes through the governance and social tokens. So the ownership shares economic, social, and political components, creating best practices for digital coordination. I wasn't very satisfied with this definition. So perhaps a better way to understand what a DAO is by understanding what a DAO isn't. So here come into picture some factors of a DAO. all of the factors can be viewed through actions. There are 3 types of actions: the proposals, the decisions, and the execution. So each of those should be sufficiently decentralized. And it's okay if they're not 100% decentralized, because in my experience, you would have trouble with the execution part of the whole action sets. But fine, they should be probably a bit more centralized, right? Well, they probably shouldn't be too centralized, because in that case, you're kind of moving away from the whole idea of blockchain, right? So this is another factor. This is just like a brief overview of DAOs that currently exist. And according to DeepDAO, there are actually more than like almost 5,000 DAOs listed there on that site. Before like going any further, just so I get to know you guys, let's do a quick raise of hands. So, like, who here is technical? So more like developer, business developer, like treasury, or like finance, and who is, give me a second, I'll make a raise of hands in just in a second, and who is non-technical, so like marketing or design or like even project management. Okay, so who is technical here? All right, a lot of tech people, cool. For who is this like first crypto conference? All right, so a couple of people. All right, and who has worked for a DAO before, or is currently working in one? Just a couple of people, so you have not really worked in a DAO. Okay, so I'm actually going to answer the question why I should work in a DAO by going through the lessons that I learned by encountering some challenges. So these are all taken like from my experience. The purpose is for you to get a clear perception of what a DAO is, by basically painting a more complete picture compared to the definition we have started off with at the beginning. If you follow these, you could get like the most out of your experience when working with DAO, or for you couple of people working in a DAO, you could get like a better approximation of, you know, like what are the next challenges that you could face. So the first challenge is onboarding. So there are a lot of questions that come to mind because the whole area can feel a bit overwhelming. So how do I get started with DAOs? Who to partner with? Where do you spend your time? Well, I'd recommend you starting with, like, since you're all technical, so I'm gonna go through like the first step, which is basically like getting to know the technology, you know, from MetaMask to like getting to know like different products, different protocols. But perhaps if you are technical, maybe you don't nurture so much your socials. Well, me coming from marketing, that's something that I can kind of highlight. I'm going to talk a bit more about networking in a second, but yeah, you should definitely nurture your social channels. Like, you know, how Discord is more for like protocol or like project specific talks, while Twitter, well, everything is on Twitter. So that's something where you can find like knowledge bases, but also people, and those replies are kind of easy, so you should nurture those socials. And just kind of like invest yourself in a first DAO. That's the last step, basically. And what does invest mean? Basically, all your resources, the time, the money. You should perhaps even ask to get paid in the native tokens from the DAO, because that way, like, that amount of money doesn't really mean that much to you in the beginning, even if you lose it. But that does mean, like, psychologically, like a bigger investment from yourself. So the last one, step one, start learning. Step two, don't stop. What I mean by this, because, well, it's kind of easy to have a job, even a profession, but crypto is more of a career. That means that you're probably gonna dive very deep into it. You're probably gonna bring your work home. You're gonna be one of your friends from your group of friends who talks about crypto all the time. And you know why you're here, because that's your hedge, that's your, basically, you're risking it in a way, because in probably about 5 years' time, if and when crypto becomes mainstream, you're gonna be somebody with 5 years of experience in it. Well, that's fine, moving on. So, challenge number 2 is reputation. So before accepting an offer from any project, any DAO, you should think really hard about your reputation, because reputation, well, the stakes are a lot higher in Web3 compared to the Web2 businesses. Basically, every social post you make is kind of like your financial endorsement of that project. Are you really comfortable with somebody investing their life savings into one project? Right, so everything you say or do kind of adds up to your permanent record in Web3. So if you are seen affiliated with projects that are unable to execute, like your reputation can suffer. So there's like a good rule of thumb I use to kind of like gauge the reputation of a DAO you're considering working for by answering these questions. Do the founders look reliable? Like, do they have socials? Do they communicate with other people, with their community? How do they execute on their promise? So basically, you know, like how do they behave in regards to the mission and vision, as opposed to kind of like a price talk of the token. Also, do they have like a clear communication channel between the community and the team? Are they transparent? So lesson 2 is reputation is a lot more valuable than money. Protect it at all costs. Challenge number 3 is coordination. This should probably be played, the video. Just click. So in the background, there's this kind of like screen recording of a talk I had with one of the community members. It actually goes for a while. So this is just one of the community members, and even though he's like very smart, his advice was very helpful. Still, is this sustainable? You can imagine that he's not the only one who actually wants to contribute, and like his intentions are good. Because you have to manage multiple people on multiple channels, and each of those people have different backgrounds. They have different perspectives. So somebody coming from dev background might put more emphasis on something like implementing new product features, whereas somebody from marketing like myself might put more emphasis onto something like rebranding. So how do you kind of like say what has bigger priority? And also, like, there are a lot of project management tools that you guys are probably aware of. So the lesson 3 is to kind of like tackle that, focus, prioritize, and use the tools which you like the most. Because it's kind of like easy to get overwhelmed in crypto, because like your backlog just kind of piles up. Challenge number 4 is leadership, and leadership is kind of like in a gray area in a DAO. Why? Because leadership in a way implies management or hierarchy, and DAO being a DAO, there's not supposed to be a hierarchy. Hierarchy is supposed to be flat. Like, if there is a hierarchy, there should just be basically one entity at the top, which is basically the community, the token holders. And in that case, how to define leadership? A leader is not a manager, but rather it's somebody who knows what to do next. And anybody can be a leader, and it does not have to be defined like before you actually start. Leaders can kind of emerge naturally. So lesson here is don't just brainstorm or wait for permission, rather execute. And because DAOs are filled with a lot of like smart people with a lot of good ideas, but in the end, that's what they are, ideas. You have to make those ideas a reality. So the challenge number 5 is conferences and people. Well, you know how you are surrounded with, like on these conferences, for me, like one of the smartest people I've met. Everybody's super smart, open-minded, like forward-thinking, and you should just approach people. Like, that's one of my key takeaways from the past conferences I attended, is like you don't really have to be anxious. You basically just approach somebody, introduce yourself, and remember you have at least one topic in common, crypto. So literally just talk about like what do you do, like how did you get into crypto, so like your crypto story, remember how I got mine like from Brazil. And also, good advice is ask for parties. That's where people are, who know more people, and so on. So you can just kind of like exchange contact with them and nurture those relationships and connect on a human level, not as if you're kind of like expecting to get something from them. So give more than you take. So connect with people, nurture those relationships, and give more than you take. Networking is very important, like in Web2 businesses, even more so in Web3. my kind of opinion is because the space is a lot smaller than Web2 businesses, so knowing basically one influential people in Web3 carries more weight than in Web2 businesses. So just start building your network and, you know, approach people, and like you shouldn't really care like how do you come off as. You can come off as a weirdo, like nobody really cares. I'm a bit of a weirdo as well. So the challenge number 6 is imposter syndrome. So basically sometimes you can feel like a fake, like you don't know as much as you're supposed to. But just remember that everybody starts from square one, and a lot of the people don't really know like what they're doing for the first couple of months. And you should just embrace the fact that you should be supposed to learn through trial and error. Like in the beginning, there are probably gonna be a lot more errors than wins. So lesson 6 is you will make mistakes and focus on everything else besides money. Challenge number 7, like this seemed kind of too trivial for me because it's really talked a lot in Web2 businesses, like especially during the last, I don't know, 5 years. But I really felt like this was super necessary to mention because this is even more emphasized in Web3 businesses. Because there are kind of like 2 potential pitfalls of like crypto. The first one is kind of working too much. And that means kind of like making work your life. I mean, it's kind of appealing because, you know, the cool technology, the people, the innovation, the potential. The other one is kind of like being a freeloader. And that's, you can pass off easily under the radar with that because the challenge number 3 and 4, if you remember, the coordination and leadership, because you have no real boss, it's kind of like hard to communicate. So you should really try to balance the 2, and balance is a journey and not the destination. So if you remember, we started with this, but then we went through these. So perhaps an alternative definition to DAO is perhaps a place where you will have to learn your entire life, a place where you will have to risk your reputation, a place where you will have trouble communicating, a place where you don't really know who's the boss, a place where you'll have to network for a living, a place where you'll like feel fake at times, and a place where you will have a couple of sleepless nights. Is that a good definition? Probably not, but I think it's a matter of perspective. So kind of like my, here's some scroll notes. So kind of like my take on this is a bit more optimistic. So this is a place where you can actually learn a lot more things. This is a place where you will learn how to be more responsible. This is a place where you will learn how to communicate and to manage people. This is a place where you will learn how to take initiative and be more independent. This is the place where you'll meet the most brilliant of people. This is a place where you will overcome your fears, uncertainties, and doubts. And you will experience what it means to be out of balance, so when you find it again, you will appreciate it more. I just told you my crypto story. I'm looking forward to hearing yours. Thank you.